you look at online ads, you look at marketing in general, and there's this kind of huge rush to, to kind of get the sale. Everything's like buy now, buy now, buy now, buy now. And that's like something that I've always tried to kind of stay away from, because that's not, realistic. So I understand that like that sales cycle is sometimes a little bit slower and requires, is incumbent upon the brand to kind of build that relationship with the consumer and the decision maker. And that's essentially like how you grow the business.
Darren, welcome back.
Hi, Reggie.
Lovely to see you again. You are in a rather swanky office over there. Is that the quad?
Yeah, this is a quad in Irvine. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning, so it's a little quiet at the moment, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, it's nice here.
Wonderful. So last time we spoke, we gave all our lovely listeners a bit of an insight into who you are, a bit of your background, your time at Google, your time at building the business out in New York, and how you happened to get over to the wilds of California. So what we're going to focus on a little bit today, and we're just, this is a series of podcasts that we're doing, so we're just going to keep them bite-sized, so it's not some sort of long, laborious thing. It's really just talk about how we can leverage your experience over there in the California market to begin with, and some of the things that we are doing and some of the initiatives that we're putting in place. So why don't we sort of kick off with that? I know you've been working with us for a short while now. You've been learning some of the ways that we do things. So, which is, again, sometimes can feel a little bit counterintuitive, but if you want to make a difference, you've got to think differently, which is always our mantra. So do you just want to give a sort of broad overview, and I can sort of ask you questions along the way? So go for it, Darren.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we've been, having conversations and working together for a couple of months now. In that time, I've had an opportunity to kind of really sort of understand the value that digital clarity can bring to the table, particularly for B2B tech companies. And then just like pairing that with my historical experience working for Google and, essentially being a digital strategist for the last 15 to 20 years. And then alongside the location, being in Southern California, being in Irvine with access to places like, Los Angeles and San Diego and other places, just seemed like, an ideal marriage. So yeah, really kind of looking forward to, sort of building my knowledge base and just, starting to connect with business leaders and CMOs and CEOs of, companies out here, and just trying to figure out how we could help them with growth.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. As the old saying goes, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And certainly in the space that we operate in, this is not we're not selling widgets here. Right. So it's a sophisticated consultancy marketplace or a consultancy service that we're selling.
Yep.
It's well needed. The biggest market by far online is LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I know we've been talking about some of the things that we've been doing here on LinkedIn over here in Europe. Yep. And do you want to just share some of the kind of outreach and some of the things you've been up to on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I think that the most important thing at this point is really kind of identifying who we want to be reaching out to, and then figuring out what messaging we want to be putting out there, how we're going to connect with them, and what's going to resonate with them. So again, it's a little bit of a learning process at the moment, but as you said, it's like kind of early steps and making sure that the foundation is there so that we can start to kind of create some leverage in the, the medium-term future. So really that's been the focus at the moment, and sort of positioning myself more, because my background is a little varied, positioning myself a little bit more as an expert in like the B2B, tech space, focusing a little bit more in my experience in those areas. I mean, I think that kind of combination of like identifying who we want to be doing business with, the companies where we feel like we can deliver the most amount of value, and then alongside, again, that kind of positioning through publishing like relevant content, which I think is going to resonate with that audience, is where we want to go.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important that we make the distinction. This is not just about doing an email blast like in the old days, back in the 70s and 80s, and hoping, throwing as much mud at the wall and hoping what sticks. What's really important for people to try and understand, and obviously the reason for some of these podcasts as well, is to educate
Exactly.
stakeholders, listeners, and shareholders in the way that things have changed,
Yeah.
the way people buy these days. It's no longer just the old Jordan Belfort, sell me this pen.
Right.
The adage now is, well, do you need a pen? If not, there's no point having that kind of discussion. So I'm just going to touch on very quickly that these things do take time.
Mhm.
It takes time to build trust and establish some of the things that we're doing. Buyers are very, very wary. So absolutely, we've been working on a lot of initiatives to create content and to make that distinction between lead generation, which is pushing,
Yeah.
which doesn't always necessarily work. And the area that we're very much focusing on is thought leadership,
Yeah.
rich content,
Yeah.
education, and really giving people the tools to actually achieve one of two things. Number one, do we solve the problem that they have?
Yeah.
And number two, is the service that we're offering creating an opportunity for them? And
Yeah.
that's the two kind of areas that we are actually focusing on. So it's great that you are doing those kind of outreaches and
Yeah.
leveraging your experience. And I just think the other thing to add is your vast experience. And remember, I was in those markets as well in the B2C, and those lines have massively blurred.
Yeah.
It is no longer B2B, it is no longer B2C, but very much human to human.
Yeah.
And those end touch
100%.
points are what it is. So we really bring that experience to bear now.
Yeah, I think there are some obvious distinctions between the B2B market and the B2C market. However, there is a huge amount of crossover as well. Like one of the things that I've always advocated for with my clients is that kind of softer sell kind of approach, that sort of education and building relationships with potential customers. You look at online ads, you look at marketing in general, and there's this kind of huge rush to kind of get the sale. Everything's like buy now, buy now, buy now, buy now. And that's like something that I've always tried to kind of stay away from, because that's not, realistic. So I understand that like that sales cycle is sometimes a little bit slower and requires, is incumbent upon the brand to kind of build that relationship with the consumer and the decision maker. And that's essentially like how you grow the business, rather than just, assuming that somebody's going to click on an ad or click on a link in an email and make a purchase right away. So, we want to do kind of the same thing with our business development, which is, again, kind of educating and creating a brand and just being able to communicate like what the potential value add is that we can offer, as opposed to just saying, okay, well, like we're interested in doing business right away. I understand, but there's a ramp up to that, and it doesn't happen overnight. But I honestly feel like that is the way to grow a business, whether that's in the B2C sector or whether that's in the B2B sector.
Absolutely. IBM wasn't built overnight. No great brand that we take for granted today. And anything that is a unicorn is an exception and certainly not the rule. So, and even those are worth it. We're laying the foundations for something a lot stronger, a lot bigger in the future. We're looking at the footprint in California and expanding out. So 100%. And I think one other thing that I'm just going to add very quickly is that Boston Consulting, BCG, the group did a bit of research last year, which was really sent shockwaves through the industry. There are $2 trillion lost every year with old school marketing and selling.
Right.
And it's totally lost. And that is the GDP of India, right? An emerging market that's lost every single year because people are still using very old sales techniques, very old marketing techniques, and just wasting money. Our role is very much to sort of focus on those clients, help them pivot, look at what's working, look at some of the data, but also bring that knowledge. Data on its own is useless if you don't know how to sort of position it. So the way customers engage with their the way they engage now, and the way vendors should be engaging with their customers is something that we have in our wheelhouse, and we help them do with all that experience. So listen, Darren, that's been really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to keep these things short and sweet. That was fantastic. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Come back. We will be back again, and look forward to seeing you soon. Darren, thank you. Speak to you again soon.
Cheers. Bye.